Honest community, before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favour to ask. If you enjoy the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know.
Welcome to the Honest Property Podcast. We are hosts, Becky and Ruth, and on this podcast, we love talking all things about modern entrepreneurship and financial literacy, predominantly in property investing. But on today's show, we are honoured to have Alice Dartnell. Thank you so much for being with us today. She's currently in Thailand.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much for having me from Thailand.
Yeah. So we connected on Instagram, didn't we? And I think the thing that gravitated us together was the fact, well, I don't know if you've heard of the term happer. We're all happers here, which means like we're little mixed race Asian babies. And the fact that Alice is showing people exactly how to have location freedom with their business and how to claim their time back, which is what we're all about.
Yeah, it all comes from time and energy management, and she teaches other business owners on how to do that and still be able to live that location freedom life. So would you be able to introduce yourself and your whole story of how this came about, that you decided this was your calling?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. Sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse today, but the downside of traveling is sometimes aircon and airplanes. So my voice is the victim of that at the moment. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to share my story and hopefully inspire people, help people listening to it. I've not always been a digital nomad. Life very, very different. 3 years ago, it was actually almost 3 years to the day that I left England. Yeah, it was the 16th of March 2022, and I boarded on a plane to Valencia because I'd enrolled into language school. Always had that one day I'm going to learn Spanish, go to Spain. Never got around to it, and my divorce put me on this whole catalyst and journey of where I am today about being a digital nomad. But it was 3 years ago that I left England, and I was like, right, I'm going to go to Spain for a few months, learn the language, and it just hasn't stopped. So I did my time in Valencia, and then I went traveling around South America for 3 months, and then I decided, right, I need to get back into real life, in air quotes. So I was looking for somewhere to settle, and I was actually going to head to Bali, but my parents live in Cambodia, so they were like, oh, we haven't seen you properly for a while, why don't you come to visit us in Cambodia? So yeah, I headed over to Cambodia for a couple of months. And then before I knew it, a whole year had passed. And then I was like, oh, I'm still here. And I'd bump into people and they're like, you're still here? You're like, yeah. So I kind of badged it as my accidental 18 months living in Cambodia. Obviously I had left. I'd gone to see my family in Japan. I'd gone back to England a couple of times, holidays and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm currently now in Thailand for a month, and I'll be going back to the UK for a few months, and then I'm actually going to be moving to Bali. So the last 3 years have been an absolute whirlwind, total accident digital nomad. I always said that I was going to have a business that I could travel with, but I just never expected it to be in the way that it is. But yeah, here we are.
That's amazing. I want to do that. Oh my gosh, I've never been to Cambodia, but it's definitely on the list. But all the other countries that you've mentioned are, actually I haven't been to South America.
No, I haven't been to South America.
not long enough to really experience it. But everything they all sound like my favorite places.
Yeah. Do you feel like because your business is digital, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, predominantly
it's
digital.
Yeah. And do you find that that's really helped you to be able to live the way that you're living?
Oh my God, absolutely. So I was really, I'm going to use the word blessed, which might sound a weird word to pair with the word COVID, but I was really blessed during that COVID era because I started my business literally days before we went into lockdown. Now, obviously, nobody knew we were going to go into lockdown, right? So I'm so grateful for that because it got everyone online really, really quickly. So as I said, I'd always said that I wanted to split my time. I love London, but I'm not very good in the cold. And I love my
No.
holidays. So I always said that I would love, in an ideal world, to split my time between the UK and other areas. And because my family, my mum is Japanese, so I've got family in Japan. My parents live predominantly in Cambodia, so my family are on the opposite side of the world. So I always said that I wanted to have the freedom and the flexibility to have a business to do that, to like see my parents, but also do what my friends are back in England. But yeah, I guess that COVID was a blessing because everyone just got to Zoom straight away. So whilst this was in my long-term business plan, it wasn't ever I never in a million years thought it would happen this quick. So yeah, I remember making that decision to go to Valencia. And I remember it so clearly, when there's certain things in your head, like you just really pinpoint that day. And it was Father's Day, and I was in Bassi, and I was having some wine with my dad. And it probably was the third bottle of wine that gave me the courage to be like, I'm going to go to Spain. And I thought, you know what, my clients won't know if I'm in London or in Spain, because everything's on Zoom, and my clients are in America, in the UK, the Middle East, and we joke about it. Apart from the clothing that I'm wearing, they have no idea where I am in the world, and they're like, right, you look tanned and you've got short sleeves on, you must be abroad. And like, we joke about that. That's the only way that they know where I am.
I love that. So it was your job, your business was already online based anyway when you were in London.
Yeah, because I
So
started
you were like, well,
literally in lockdown.
So you were like, why can't I just take this anywhere?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think you made a really good point as well that just want to refer to, because you just said that your family are on the other side of the world, but you also you have ties in the UK as well. And I think it's kind of a no-brainer, really, to be able to have the sort of business that you have, to be able to basically have it all, to be able to, you don't need to feel like you need to be in one location, or what's the word, like you need to stay in that one place, because you do have ties. Everyone that you love is in multiple places. So why do you need to be just stuck in one place?
Yeah, and one of the things as well is like Cambodia is not an easy country to get in and out of. So if I go see my parents, it takes like a good couple of days to get there, then you've got to acclimatise. So really, every time that I've gone to see them, like I've gone for a good chunk of time, like a month. And when I was working in corporate, that was really difficult. I'd have to time it around the Christmas, see who else was getting time off at Christmas, accumulate all your annual leave and clump it together and all that kind of stuff. It was really difficult to see my parents in that first 13 years that they were living out there. And again, Japan is far, expensive to get to. My family also actually aren't mainland Japan. They're from this tiny little island called Okinawa. So just, trying to get there has been so difficult. But yeah, to have that, I do feel very, very grateful and blessed that I am able to split my time, especially as when I made that decision with my dad on that Bassy day out, and I was like, right, I'm going to go to Spain for a few months. In all honesty, it's because I was going through a divorce, and it was really difficult. And as much as I loved London, I didn't want to stay in London when the divorce came through, because I needed that fresh break. And obviously you see stuff that reminds you of them, and you're like, I was in the marital home, and it was just like memories everywhere, really painful memories. So I thought I'll just go to Spain, tick this one thing off my bucket list. I'll be back in 6 months. But yeah, then life just took its twists and turns and took me in a different direction.
I love that, because Alice just sounds like she's got such a fun life. Because I think the last voice note you sent to us was like, I've just come back from kickboxing. And I'm like, I was somewhere in Thailand doing kickboxing. But I mean, with moving around and being living a nomadic life, like you said, it does require a lot of travel. I think anyone who's been on a long haul flight appreciates how tiresome travel is.
And then you're also trying to run a business at the same time. So how do you manage that? So you're like the queen of energy management.
Yep.
The queen of energy management. And you said that it's different to time management. So could you
Yeah.
explain why is it different?
Yeah. All right. So I just got to explain a little bit of a backstory to just kind of set the context here. I became obsessed with time management sort of in my mid-20s. And the reason before that, that's a whole nother story we can go into. But, reason for that is because when I was younger, I suffered really badly from mental health issues. So depression and eating disorder, self-harm. And I had that for a decade. So 15 to sort of 25-ish, I had this real dark period of my life. And then when I started discovering things like personal development, law of attraction, all those kind of things, I was like, I don't have to stay in this way. Like, I can change. And it was so like, liberating. I'm not going to say that I like miraculously changed my life overnight. It has been a journey and lots of therapy, but it made me realize I was more in control of my life. So I swore to myself and promised to myself that I would never ever waste time ever again, because I felt like I had this decade to make up for. Now, in one way, it was really, really good because it made me hungry for life and passionate and want to do some things and travel or whatever. But then it also set me on this trajectory of being obsessed with time management. And like any obsession, you take it too far. So I ended up becoming so obsessed with maximizing my time, so obsessed with being productive, not wasting any time. In one way, that's good. We don't want to waste our time, but it also became really bad because I was thinking about my time, but not my energy. So fast forward another 10 years or so, I find myself burning out in 2019. And it's because I hadn't looked after my energy. Yes, I was great at time management, planning, productivity, to-do list, yada, 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 but I wasn't looking after me or my energy. So I like to think of yourself as like a battery, like a phone charger or a bank account. There's only so much you can take before you deplete or bankrupt yourself if you don't then top up. So I was the people pleaser, the perfectionist. I didn't have boundaries. I would go to bed late, get up early. And yes, I was doing the healthy things like kickboxing and having a green smoothie, but I wasn't, looking after myself, energy, sleep, the basics, all those kind of facets. So when I burnt out, it was a huge slap in the face where I was like, where did I go wrong? Because I'm like the queen of time management. And then I realized, but I haven't been looking after my energy. And that for me was the game changer, because I never ever wanted to burn out ever again. It's probably one of the worst experiences I've been through. So I then started looking at my time management as energy management and looking not to the time and clock, but to energy.
Can I ask a question about how that burnout manifested for you? What was the outcome? Like, what did that look like?
Oh my God, it was the weirdest thing, because now I look back on that, I'm like, oh my God, it was so bloody obvious. Of course you were burning out, Alice. Like, look for the signs. But I didn't know the signs that I was looking out for.
Yeah.
So yes, there were physical signs, things like a twitchy left eye. Don't ask me why it's the left. If anyone knows, let me know. But it was the twitchy left eye. I didn't even realize that I was so sleep deprived because I was still functioning. So yeah, I was tired, but I was still functioning, and everyone's, I just didn't realize. But also, I am generally someone who's like incredibly healthy, so I think it masked for a very long time. Like one of my recent health episodes, like when I was in Cambodia, I contracted typhoid, and I didn't know for 4 months. And I'm going kickboxing, I'm just cracking on as normal. And, there's a 1 in 3 fatality with that. So the fact that I'm just like knocking about as normal was like mental. But that's it. Like I'm the type of person that I won't even know when I'm ill. So there I am, like, running myself on empty, but not actually realizing. And I never knew, and nobody ever told me, because I didn't look ill, and I've never had a cold. Even to the day, I've never had a cold. So just all these, like, it was just the weirdest experience. But when it happened, it made sense. And then I was like, okay, right. So, the fact that I've got this twitchy left eye, but for me, a lot of it wasn't physical. More of it for me was mental. So my irritability, I think my anxiety wasn't anxiety, or I think it was burnout symptoms. The fact that I would be very snappy. So, I'm cool as a cucumber. And then one thing like burning the toast or something stupid like that would send me in a rage. I just had no tolerance levels.
Yeah.
So for me, it definitely was more of the mental side that now I've come out the other side. I'm like, oh, okay, right. I just thought that was me. I just thought that was my personality. But yeah, it was a weird experience to go through.
I was going to say that everything that you have just said, and I think this is why we really resonate with you, because I think Becky and I have had that similar experience, and I'm just nodding inside going, oh my goodness, I can relate hugely. And I think as women, when we were starting our business, we thought there was one way to do business, which was you basically don't sleep and you just
take care of your health.
So
then you can have the energy. But that doesn't mean, just because your body, you exercise and like you said, eat well, doesn't mean you've got endless amounts of energy.
So your physical health being sorted, but you're right. It's the mental part. We were like,
and I don't listen.
Now
I can women are so good at like just shutting down like any pain or any discomfort and just powering through. And I really appreciate you sharing those symptoms, because everyone has heard of burnout, but they don't really know what looks like. That looks like.
And it's different for everyone.
Personally, I get mentally affected, and then my body will physically show what's happening later, whether mine's usually eczema. Or anxiety, like I can't sleep, or I got shingles once, and I was like, I didn't even know I was stressed.
and it's so weird, isn't it? Like now I'm very, very big on like listening to the body, and if there's the slightest thing that's off, I'm like, I'm not hypochondriac, but I'm like, what's going on there? And actually, just to be totally transparent, I've gone through some personal things recently because I have made the decision that I'm going to leave Cambodia, and that's not an easy decision to make, because number one, I accidentally went there, number two, my parents are there, and so it kicks up a lot of like stuff that I've got to work through, and like, a lot of transition. And headstrong Alice that goes to the gym, she's fine, but actually I then started noticing all these random symptoms like ulcers, and it taking me longer than normal to get to sleep, and being really bloated and putting on weight for no apparent reason. And I was like, like this isn't adding up here. What is going on? And then when I made my decision and told my parents, I'm quite unhappy now living in Cambodia. Like my time is done. I'm ready to move on. It's been great, but that chapter is closed, which was not an easy conversation, because obviously, they live there and stuff. Literally within days, I've de-bloated, the ulcers are gone, and I'm back to sleeping. And I was like, oh, so the body was trying to tell me something. So I think sometimes as women, we can be very headstrong, and we can pull up a big girl pants and just crack on, which is great. I'm all for that, but not to the cost of your health or sanity. And I think sometimes there's a very grey line there.
Hey guys, if you're new to property investing, we know exactly how hard it is to figure out where to start. That's why we created the Beginner's Roadmap. It's your guide to mastering the fundamentals so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Plus, you'll gain access to our free community for ongoing support. Just hit the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into this episode.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good point. I think, more women, I hope, or definitely with your help, are learning to listen to their bodies and know when a chapter has closed.
Instead of delaying it so much that it gets to that point of burnout.
Yeah. As I've been in that, I mean, with the travel, I personally, and I'm going to say it, my chapter in England is closing.
So is mine.
My body is yelling at me right now. So what techniques have you put in, besides listening to your body, do you recommend for preserving your energy and your time? What are tools that you use and recommend that you're on top of it?
I think there's so many practical things that you can do. First of all, like I always say to my clients, have awareness. So for me, energy management is about physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And have awareness of what you need and what's going to work for you, because everyone's different, so everyone needs to do what works for them. There's no point me sitting here prescribing your listeners, for example, saying thou must do like meditation for 10 minutes a day, or because actually if that makes you more agitated because you don't like meditating, it ain't gonna work. Like, you got to find what works for you. I've got some clients that are like so spiritual. I mean, I'm definitely spiritual and woo, but I don't know, I've got some clients that are really, really into that. So, for them, it's really important that they honor their energy in alignment with the moon, because they've noticed that the moon and their menstrual cycle has a huge impact on them. And I'm like, right, brilliant. You know that works for you. I've got certain clients that know during certain moon phases or full moon or their cycles, they can't sleep. So it's like, okay, well, maybe just factor that into your diary. They don't put big meetings in from around there. So just things like that. It's that awareness is so important. But for some practical tools, I would always say to my clients, track your time and your energy for a little bit to see what is happening. I had one client who had no idea that bang on literally 4 o'clock every day, she was like, and just, dead to the world. And when we realized that, and she just kind of slightly restructured her day, so she did easy admin at 4 p.m. rather than kind of like big creative stuff, she was conserving more energy. So it's about having that awareness and then finding the tools that are right for you. But personally, for me and a lot of my clients, it is things like meditation, it is things like journaling, EFT, the tapping, but also knowing what self-care practices you like. Do you like a massage? Do you like a bath? And for it not to be a chore, because when you have to do something, then it's just another thing on your to-do list rather than an energy topper. But also the other aspects of tools, such as like, going out for walks, going to the gym, making sure you're eating well. Like, it sounds so basic, but it's often the basics that are the first to go when things get busy, especially as women, will push it ourselves to the bottom of the list. So it might sound really basic to know and listen to this, but also think about, like, actually, am I doing these things? Like, am I implementing these tools? So yeah, having that kind of level of awareness is so important.
I think I was going to say that's so, yeah, everything that you said is, we would say keep it simple, silly, or keep it simple, stupid, whichever one you want to say. But we've spent the last 2 years simplifying, because it can get so easy, especially if you come from a background where it's quite instilled to like work really hard, that sometimes you can turn into a bit of a workaholic. And you then, like, all the self-care just like you said, goes out the window. That trying to keep putting more on your plate is just it you have to undo that. You need to take that off your diary. And we've learned this a lot in the last 2 years, was simplify everything. Just simplify. Because why on earth would you add more on? Why would you try and do more but not as effectively?
And the other thing to add to this as well, and something that I always teach my clients, is that everything in life is either an energy filler or an energy killer. And there's going to be some things in your business or in your work or in your personal life that fills you with joy. The kind of things where you get like lost in the moment and it feels flowy, and you're just like, oh, I could be doing this for hours. I would do this even if you didn't pay me. Like, you just feel good. And, there's definitely things in my business that I love doing, podcasts. I love, chatting to people. I love coaching. But then there's also going to be stuff in your business and your work and life or whatever that you don't. And that's okay. Like, I certainly, for me, anything that's a bit like techie, admin-y, numbery, I'm a bit like, oh, and I will do it. But I also know that is going against my grain. Like, that is going to be a little bit harder for me. So it's when you understand like what's filling your energy and what's killing your energy, then you can have more control over where your time and your energy is going as well. And it might be tasks, but it also might be people. Lockdown taught me that I'm actually an introvert, which surprised me and everyone around me, because I'm like the most chatty, gobshite person ever. And everyone's like, really? You're an introvert? And I'm like, yes, because actually when I'm with people for too long, I'm like, and I need my quiet alone time. And that doesn't mean to say I'm not social. It just means I know that I can't put too many social things in the diary at one go. Or if I do, like I'm on a girls' weekend away or something, I also know that I'll have to retreat back following it or leading up to it or whatever. So it's really crucial to know, ladies, like, what are your energy fillers and what are your energy killers?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it's really hard to identify unless you're actively aware of it, and that's a practice, I think, because I
totally.
only recently, like, I would notice when I'm exhausted, and then I'd see other people just gaining energy from doing something, and I would just think there's something wrong with me. I'll just deal with, like, I just gotta just deal with it, and not take any time to recoup that energy loss. And just but then not taking care of that, it will lead to burnout.
And one of the things that I've done over the last 5-6 years to make sure I never go back into that burnout place, and I manage my time and my energy, is I now plan according to my energy. So just to give you an example, obviously, you know, ladies, I'm in Thailand at the moment. I'm actually here for a business retreat at the end of March, and it's 4 days, and I know it's going to be high intensity, lots of thinking. You know, my notepad is going to be full, my brain is going to be full. It's also going to be quite social. You know, there's a couple of dinners and whatnot. I'm going to love it. That is going to fill my cup up for sure. But I also know it's going to drain me on like a social people type way. And actually, I've also come to Thailand with my dad. So yeah, he's just tagging along, bless him.
I love it.
And I'm not used to living with someone. So the fact that we're sharing this, you know, this 2-bed Airbnb, as lovely as it is to spend quality time together, I'm also not used to this. So I also know that probably by the end of March, I'm going to be peopled out. So I have deliberately, after the retreat, blocked out that first day after the retreat, and I've cleared my diary, because I'm like, I don't know what I need. So, you know, I have the time. So if clients wanted calls, or people wanted meetings, or people wanted to book me in for podcasts, I technically have the time, but I don't think I'm going to have the energy. And that for me has been the game changer, that I now plan to my energy, not to my time.
I think that's it makes so much sense, but I can see why it's such a simple thing that you can feel like you're not, like, it's easy to not take that on board. And I can imagine for people who run their own businesses as well, like, we've been guilty of it. I'm talking on behalf of you, Benay, but well, we've been guilty of it too, where you feel like, oh, well, I've just got to finish all of these things for this week, and then I'm still going to add something in later. And it can be quite easy to feel guilty for not completing or ticking everything off on that day that was already unrealistic in the first place, when your energy is already really low, whilst you're on your period. So I completely agree with you that the way to structure, if you are doing so much socializing, so much stuff with work, give yourself permission to just have a few days where you do nothing. And that was very hard for us to admit. That doesn't mean you're failing.
It doesn't mean you're not being productive. It doesn't mean you're being lazy. And or when people message and they're like, oh, do you have a spare minute? And it's like, no, because that spare minute is going to make my battery go into the negative when I'm already drained.
And it's trying to not feel bad about it. Go, you know, there will be another time, and it's okay to hold that back. Do you think there's a reason why, well, women in particular, I guess, just don't hold boundaries as well?
I mean, this is just my own personal take. I just think the way that we've grown up with society, and there is a lot of pressure on women. I think there's a lot of pressure on women that we can have it all. You know, feminism is really empowering, but it has also told us that we can have it all. We can have it all, but it also then adds another layer of pressure. So I don't have kids, for full disclosure, but, you know, I look at some of my friends, and their wife, their full-time corporate leader, their mum of 2 kids, and I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of responsibilities. You're wearing a lot of hats. And, you know, generally as well, the pressure of maintaining the house and doing that kind of work, like the unpaid work, goes to the woman. I always used to joke to my ex-husband, I was like, you know, the family PA, because he didn't remember when it was his bloody mum's birthday until I bought the card and the present, you know? So there's a lot of pressure on women to do it all. And then I think social media is amazing. I mean, how cool is it that we connected on opposite sides of the world? But I also do think there can be a downside of social media, where we're looking at other people going, how the bloody hell are they fitting it all in? What, like, you know, well, look at this superwoman. Oh God, look at her with her six pack, and as she do it, and we're always comparing ourselves as well. So I just think that we do, as women, just put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I'm not exempt, by the way. I'm like my hardest critic. My mum's always saying like, you are your worst critic, and I'm like, I know. And I think a lot of women are like that. And I just I just think I think it's probably a lot of things, but I do think it is the way that we've been brought up in this society and stuff.
Before we continue, here's a quick thought. Ever feel like there's just never enough time to focus on what really matters in your business? You don't have to do it all alone. As they say, a great team makes everything easier. That's why we've partnered with the Freedom Geek. Their talented Filipino VAs help us with tasks like admin and podcast editing, just like for this episode, giving us the freedom to focus on what really moves the needle. If you're looking to reclaim your time and to work smarter, then check out the Freedom Geek. All the details are in the show notes. Now let's get back to our conversation.
You should remind me, I keep telling everyone to read this book because you made a good point about, feminism is amazing, that it's progressed us in so many ways, but modern feminism is also, there's always a scale, isn't it, in life? Like, so there's a positive, there's a negative somewhere, and the negative is that women are now just burning out because we are told we can do it all. And we did have another lady on our podcast who is a mother. She started investing, which for her family planning, and she very much said, we can have it all, but just not all at once. And I think it's just a reminder that yes, we can, but if we're trying to carry all these hats, like you say, or juggle all these plates, it's not realistic, especially if you don't have that support or village around you, whether you have kids or not, to be able to juggle all of these things to reach all these achievements. It's just it's a short-lived enjoyment of life.
And I think again it goes back down to that awareness of like what is important to you. So I caught myself the other day, one of the things I'm really trying to do, and I tell my clients this as well, is like, don't say you don't have time. It's just not a priority. So and it cuts you, you're like, oh, but it's so true. So my mum came round mine the other day, and I knew she was coming. I thought, I better tidy up because mum's coming round. And it's also that ADHD thing of like, I'll leave everything to the last minute until somebody comes round, and then I'll tidy my house. But anyway, she came round, and I hadn't tidied up. And I said, Mum, please don't make a comment about how messy it is. I said, I didn't have time. And then I thought, do you know what? I did have time, but I chose to go to the gym instead. And I just owned it. And I was like, I did have time. I prioritised something else. And I thought, you know what? That feels so much more liberating. I don't really care about the housework, to be honest. So, and she was like, oh, okay. And I know my mum's values are different from mine. So washing up is higher up the pecking order for her, but for me, I wanted to go to the gym. And so, but and I think sometimes we just have to be honest and go, I can't do it all. I've got 24 hours today. I can't do it all. And what do I rather choose?
I totally agree. I'm here with a pile of boxes and next to me, and I'm supposed to go through them. My partner has put them there because he's the tidy one for me to go through, but I have delayed this for a couple of days. He's looking at me now, glaring, because that was not my priority. My priority was my work or doing my my Pilates, and then there's only so much energy that I have to do these things. So this was just not my priority, and it's just not important to me. But I will get to it. But I think it's just owning that. It's like, if someone says, why haven't you done the thing? And it's like, because it wasn't important to me at the time. And that's just the truth.
Do you have any tips on how to have better energy management?
For me, it definitely goes down to that playing on of it. So don't number one, definitely the awareness, because you won't be able to put the tools or the plan in place if you don't know what works for you. So that's really important. But then having that plan and plan into your energy. So as soon as something goes in the diary, I'm already thinking around the energy of it. So a flight, a big workshop, I've just been booked in for a big workshop when I get back to the UK. I mean, that's actually in person. So, okay, let's think about this, Alice. Am I going to want an easier day the day before and the day after? Yeah, absolutely. You know, stuff like that. It's not foolproof because sometimes you can't dictate when stuff is happening, but at least you then can put buffers, or almost like, you know, your stabilizers on a bike. You know, you can just sort of hold yourself a bit. So I think, yeah, the awareness and the planning is really important, but go back to the basics, know what's really important for you. But for women as well, don't be scared to assert yourself and have those boundaries about what you need, and also communicate that with people. So people pleaser Alice definitely was like, yeah, sure, that invite, yeah, do it. Yeah, you want me to do that job for you? Yeah, no problems. And I just guessed everything without actually thinking about, can I do it? Do I want to do it? Do I have the energy to do it? And now I'm just a bit more honest with people, especially with time zones and traveling. So there's been loads of occasions that I'm like, can I get back to you on that? Because I don't know how I'm going to feel because I'm traveling, or I can do that for you at that time, but it's not going to be my best energy because ... Or seeing a message from a friend, it's 11 o'clock at night, I want to go to bed. I know obviously England is 7 hours behind, but I just messaged back going, babe, it's bedtime now. I'll reply back in the morning. So, you know, they know I haven't ghosted them, or it's double blue ticked and I haven't replied. So it's just silly little things like that can make the world of difference. But I think it is just about owning what you need and then communicating that out as well.
It all comes back to communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to actually butt in and be a little bit like on the other side. But if I find, even maybe this is bad, maybe
Go on, do it.
communicating, I will get back. Like if you message me at 11 o'clock at night and I don't respond, I feel like it's also draining for me to now still reply to you and say I'm not going to respond right now, even though I am responding right now. I will respond to you later.
You know what?
You don't have to. Like that's just like an example, because obviously people don't know where I am in the world. So
no, yeah, absolutely.
It's just communicating it. Isn't it? But I personally put timers on my phone. I let all my friends that are important to me know that I am not replying after 8:30.
Maybe we just have different friends. I feel like if my friend does, I think this is what I was trying to say, really, that if someone doesn't respond to me personally, I automatically assume they're busy because life's happening.
Same. Like,
I don't need you to tell me personally that, you know, you're doing your life. And I think a lot of my friends are like that. I did have one message from a friend who is based in the States, and she asked me a question, I responded, and then she said, I'll get back to you later, I'm just at work. And I was like, that's totally, I mean, I wasn't expecting an immediate response. So personally, I would just like a general cultural shift where we don't have to.
Yeah, well, I think that's it though, isn't it? Like I always say to my clients, just because it's instant messaging doesn't mean it's instant reply.
Exactly.
But, you know, but I think we have got ourselves into a bit of a state where we then give ourselves anxiety because we know that we've got a message from someone and we haven't responded. So I don't get this so much, but I do have friends that say to me, like, if they see like messages on their phone and they can't respond to it, like it gives them that kind of anxiety of like, oh, I've got these messages that I need to reply to. So if that will eat your energy. So little things like that, if you're noticing that's taking your energy, okay, we'll send just a holding message back, or, you know, stick your out of office on your emails, or whatever it might be. So all these little things, can think about what is the energy killer, what is draining your energy, so then you can put little mechanisms in place to kind of protect yourself.
Yeah. So I love that. In your notes before we started this podcast, you also mentioned the concept of ROT. So we're in the property sphere, which we always talk about ROI. So yeah, do you want to expand on return on investment, but for your time?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, this was like a huge thing after the burnout, because that was my wake up call when I was like, you can't do everything at once. So this kind of like, you could do anything, but you can't do everything right this second. And I'm definitely impatient. And as I mentioned, you know, I had this kind of desperation to catch up on that dark decade where I'm like, I've got to make up for lost time. So I definitely had that issue of like trying to do everything at once, but that led me to burnout. And then I started to realize that time isn't about time, it's also about energy. But then I also started to realize that not all time is created equal. And actually, sometimes you put effort into something, but get a bigger result back from it. And there's certain activities, for example, like planning, things like, sleep, things like exercise, where actually if you invest half an hour or an hour into these things, it will buy you back more time because you'll be more energized. So people think scrimping on sleep is going to save time, but it's not, because actually you're just draining yourself. People think multitasking saves time, but it doesn't, because it's just taking you longer and you'll make mistakes. So there's this element here of not all tasks are made equal. But then I realized it goes even further than that, because when you look at your work and your business, let's be honest, we've all heard of things like the Pareto's principle of 80-20 rule. 80% of your efforts will come from, or output will come from 20% of your effort. It's a bit like that. It's like, actually identify where your time is going in your business or your work, whatever. Where is it going? And what is the result that it's yielding back for you? Because it's not necessarily like 1 unit or 1 hour input equals like 1 unit of reward back. Because there's probably, certain things that you're doing in your business that you're spending way too long on it, and it's not giving you the results back that you want. Now, obviously, do I make mistakes? Absolutely. Sometimes I get to the end of the week and I'm like, oh man, I spent hours on blah, 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 and it really didn't give me the reward that I wanted, or didn't produce the results that I want. So, it's not like a perfect formula, but when you're aware of this concept of, actually, there's a return of investment on my time, there's ROT, and actually when you're focusing, especially when time is limited and you're like, right, I've only got 3 hours and I've got this long to-do list, which one do I choose? Choose the ones with the highest ROT. And that has also helped me, prevented me from burning out again, because I know that my time is limited and I know I can't do everything on my to-do list. So I'm always trying to pick the ones with the highest ROT.
That's really smart. That's really smart. I'd like to ask, do you have a lot of mothers or dads that come to you for that sort of support? Because I'm personally a mum with a young toddler, and I definitely found that if I didn't have, like you said, that energy management that would help my time management, then I would feel flustered and feel like I failed for the day. So like there's only a small window of productivity within that window, and it's going, okay, what's really going to be the top priority for today, so that I can go back to the energy management of my child.
So the majority of people that I work with are women, and a lot of them have children, and I think especially when you've got young children as well, you really need to manage your energy as well as them, and I think I think it goes back to the conversation we were having just a minute ago about like being superwoman and trying doing it all. But just, being okay with the fact that your to-do list is probably longer and bigger than the amount of hours and energy that you've got to do it. And then going, right, well, what is important? And, we probably got taught different matrices of like looking at urgent versus important and stuff, but this is about going deeper than that, because it isn't just about going, right, what's the urgent and important, but it's also going, right, what's going to bring me the biggest bang for buck on the time that I've got.
Could you give more examples about just kind of like if you were a property investor, for example, how could you look at your to-do list and be like, okay, this is important, or like you're doing social media marketing or something, what are the things that are actually effective tasks or to-dos that day? How would you identify?
I'll give a really practical example that actually came up for a client really recently. She was really struggling to get sales over the line, and she was putting these presentations together, doing the pitches, and they were brilliant. And we couldn't work out what was going wrong until I was asking her how much time was she spending on these pitch proposals. And for every single one, she was probably spending about over a day, like 7-10 hours on just one pitch deck. And it's like, right, this is where you're going wrong, because she was trying to get it perfect, you know, the font, the sizing, this, oh, go out. And, you know, she probably could have spent 5 hours on it and it'd be good enough. But then she would have had 5 extra hours to do other things in a business, or maybe even like get some rest or go for a walk or energize herself. So actually, by putting too much time and energy into something, it actually then wasn't giving her the result that she wanted back. And it's like a bell curve. It's the law of diminishing returns. It's a bell curve where there becomes a point where the effort that you're putting in then starts to diminish on the output that you're getting back out. So if she'd stopped at, let's say, 5 hours, made it good enough, okay, it might have only been 90% perfect, but it wasn't worth her spending an extra 5 hours to get it that 10% perfect to 100% perfection.
I love that. So is there a way, because
Perfectionist.
I think, is there a way to identify
And I am as well.
an appropriate amount of time to spend on a task?
It's really subjective because it depends on who you are, what you're doing, and what the results are that you're getting. So there's not like a formula to say, you know, social media tasks, this is how long you should do it, or anything like that. But it's about also knowing what your pot is. You know, if everyone's different as well. Are you working 10 hours a week, or are you working 40 hours a week? So it is going to depend as well on so many different factors. But again, I think this is where, like, auditing your time, or just being really conscious of, right, I spent X amount of hours on this and it yielded this result. And we do it naturally for money and investments. We would say, right, you know, if I put £10 in and I get £100 back, is it worth it? Or even just things like, I don't know, we've probably all done it where this shop is full price, but the shop down the road has got half price salon. Is it worth going down the road to get it for half price? Well, it depends, right? It depends on how long it's going to take you to get there, or the petrol. And so there's not like a quick formula, but it's getting into that line of thinking, because we do it for money and purchases, but we forget to do it with our time.
I have a good example when someone mentioned, which was, do I buy my gym equipment at home or travel to go to the gym and pay a subscription? But like you said, it's subjective for the person.
Yeah.
Do they want that time back, or would they rather pay the money to be able to go to gym and maybe use more equipment? And it is subjective. I guess there's no one size fits all.
But I think what you mentioned about auditing what your day looks like, and then you can go from there depending on what you value and what outcomes you want. That's such a top tip, and I'm actually going to go do that.
So do you feel like if you don't track any of this, then you just don't know how to change it? Because we track our cycles, and we base our work around that, and that has been a game changer. But I think you go even deeper, like psychologically, and that's your expertise into, okay, beyond just the cycle as a woman, especially, let's go further into how we can even bring more energy back, so that you do, you know, you clock off work and you can spend more time with your family and you have that energy still.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it is different for everyone, but it's up to you what you track as well. Every business is going to be different. Every woman is going to be different. So I would get clear on like what it is that is important for you, but also it will help you plan, because it will help you determine as well, like, how long it does take you to do something. And we've probably all done it before, where we're like, you know, I've got half an hour in between meetings, and we end up wasting and faffing about in that half hour because we don't know actually what task we can do or fad to do this in that half hour, or to go, actually, I'm going to rest for 30 minutes because that's going to be more beneficial. So yeah, I would definitely advise people to audit themselves and to track their time. Where is it going? And you don't necessarily have to do it all the time. I do personally track certain projects in my business about how long these things are taking me, just so that I can then make an assessment afterwards to be like, right, was that project worth it or not, just to aid in my learnings, but also to make sure that I kind of almost sometimes cap myself, because, you know, there's some tasks in business that you can spend forever doing. You know, you could spend forever doing social media. So cap yourself, give yourself a limit of like how many hours you're going to do each week. Otherwise, you'll just be doing it forever. So it can be used in like multiple ways.
I love that. So would you, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking, is it a good idea to then time yourself doing a task and then like using, is it Clockify?
I mean, I do it, and I do it old school, stopwatch on the phone. My phone is always next to me.
Keep it simple, silly.
My phone is always next to me, so stopwatch on the phone. And then I'll just see how long things are. And also that's a really good gauge for things like, we're very bad at estimating time. You know, we either underestimate or we overestimate, but also it stops you procrastinating because you know you've got a certain amount of time. But also, you know, sometimes, and I'm guilty of this because I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I will spend too long on something when actually sometimes good enough is good enough. But if you're aware that you've already spent 25 minutes on something and you're like, do you know what, sod it, yeah, it's fine. Get rid of the perfectionism because it's not worth me spending another 25 minutes getting it absolutely perfect. So it's just, again, it's all about raising that awareness of yourself.
Yeah. And then I guess if you're suffering from perfectionism and you still want it to be a bit better, but you don't want to put that much more time into that thing, is that a point where you could give yourself the option to delegate it to someone else?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nowadays, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's using ChatGPT as like my absolute bestie in, you know, soul spotty. So sometimes I'm like, right, you know what, that's good enough. And also, just with context, I am so dyslexic, like reading and writing actually is really difficult for me. So I will verbal vomit what I need. And I know it's captured the essence of what I'm trying to say, but it's probably grammatically terrible. So I just pop it into chat to be like, right, tidy it up. And boom, I've just saved myself 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, because chat can do it in seconds and correct my typos rather than me spending ages perfecting it. So yeah, there's loads of hacks nowadays that you can do for things like that.
I love that. I love technology this year.
Yeah.
It has saved me so much time.
Yeah, exactly.
Alice is the person you go to for time and energy management. Do you want to share with our audience what offerings you have at the moment and where they can find you?
Yeah. So please do come find me. I mainly hang out on Instagram. It's just my name. It's really, really simple, Alice_Dartnell. So if you've been listening to this podcast, come say hi. I do also hang out on Facebook and LinkedIn as well, but yeah, predominantly on Instagram. In terms of offers, I've always got some kind of freebie going on, like whether that's a webinar, a masterclass, a challenge. So get involved with that if you see it advertised. I always love helping people. And if people are interested in finding out more about time and energy, people are more than welcome to book in a free call with me, or obviously I've got ways that you can work with me. I have my Business by Design Mastermind, and also I have a planning club as well called the Life by Design Collective. So if you need to kick up the booty with your weekly planning, then that's the club for you, with a little bit of accountability sprinkled in as well. So feel free to come connect and say hi.
And you've got an event coming up as well, don't you?
Yes. That's when I'm going to be in England. That is the 19th. Yeah, Monday the 19th of May in London. Super excited about that. We will obviously be diving into creating your life by design and also time and energy management strategies to support that, as well as some juicy mindset work as well. So it's going to be a good one.
This is so aligning for our audience who are looking for time and location freedom and just systemizing their life
in a holistic way so that they can not suffer from burnout. So I think you've really come at the right time. Definitely this year, I feel like a lot of women especially are feeling that they need this. So I really appreciate you coming onto our podcast and sharing everything that you're doing that is just so beneficial, especially for business owners right now.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
See you in Thailand.
Yeah. I'll put all of Alice's links in the show notes and description, so definitely go and connect with Alice. But thank you once again.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.